Hello and welcome back to Invent Academy. This is our series on computer science, and this video will cover conditional statements and loops. As a reminder, these first 4 videos will not go into any coding specifically, but will just kind of cover the concepts. My name is Zack. I'm a freshman at the University of Michigan, College of Engineering, and I'm studying chemical engineering. This is my favorite dog of all time. Her name is Ginger, and she will lick me for hours on end if I lay next to her. My favorite color is lagoon blue. I just love being in tropical areas where the water is crystal clear and just this beautiful shade. The schedule for today is we're going to review operators and booleans, introduce conditional statements and their purpose, introduce loops and their purpose and the 2 types of loops that exist, and we do not need any materials for today besides the devices we're using to watch this. And just a review of operators. Assignment operators, such as the equal sign, give values to data types. They're used literally all the time. Arithmetic operators perform mathematical operations on integers and doubles and floats if you're not in Java. And arithmetic operators can be combined with assignment operators into one. So like times equals is the same thing as this variable equals the value of the variable previously times a certain number. Comparison operators are used to return a Boolean value, and they often compare 2 numbers to each other. Logical operators combine Boolean expressions into one singular Boolean expression that has a true or false value. And the ampersand, double ampersand, which means and, is a logical operator. Alright, for a little bit of Booleans review. If you remember, Booleans are true or false values, and a lot of coding depends on them because they're used in conditional statements, which will determine whether a piece of code executes or not. Boolean expressions can contain logical operators like we saw before, and they can also contain Boolean values. So if we look over here, this Boolean, I'm hungry, is true, and his lunchtime is true. Well, just am hungry by itself is a Boolean expression, and it is equal to true because the variable am hungry is true. And if we look here, am hungry and is lunchtime, well, that's also a Boolean expression. And since both are true, true and true is equal to true. And at the bottom here, this is also a Boolean expression, even though it doesn't contain any Boolean variables. This is a Boolean expression. It contains logical operator here, and 4 is 4 greater than or equal to 5? No, that's false. So this is a false Boolean expression. So as conditional statements goes, a lot of people refer to conditional statements as if statements, and it's not entirely accurate because else if statements are also conditional statements, and same with else statements. However, they rely on the use of an if statement previously. And conditional statements use Boolean values to determine if code should execute or not. So they're super useful if you don't know the value of a variable going in and you want to do something to that variable, but only if a certain condition is met. So in this example, x is equal to 5. This if statement is saying if x is less than or equal to 5, which it is because 5 is less than or equal to 5, then you're going to increment x. So now x is a value of 6. And this next block of code is sunny is false, is rainy is false, and wear hat and bring umbrella are declared, not yet initialized, although in Java they're technically automatically initialized to false. And this first statement is saying if is sunny, and when there's no comparison operator, you assume that is sunny has to be equal to true. So if is sunny is true, wear hat is true. Well, is sunny is not true, so you're not going to execute this code. You're going to go to the next part. Oh, else if. However, if this statement was true, if his Sunny was true, you're actually going to skip this else if and else, because else if and else only occur if this initial if was false. And else if is rainy is true, because that's what you assume, and that's how the computer works too. Bring umbrella is going to be true. Well, this rainy is false, so we're going to skip that. Else, so we automatically just do this because else covers everything else. So wear hat is false and bring umbrella is false. Loops are used to repeat the same code multiple times over, and each run through is called an iteration. And while loops have an indefinite number of iterations, while for loops have a definite number of iterations. Loops increase concision and readability, which is very important, because you can write anything with like a million blocks of code, but it's not going to be that useful to apply in a variety of situations if you don't have for loops and while loops that increase readability and allow variables to be adjusted really easily. And loops are often used in conjunction with if statements. While loops and for loops both have conditional statements within them, so Booleans are very important here too. So in a for loop, and I'll cover this in more detail when we go into Python, but basically you have an integer initialized here as 0, and the second statement is saying as long as I is less than or equal to 5, you're going to execute this block of code, and then at the end you're going to increment it. So you're going to print I, which is 0 at first, so you're going to print 0, and then you're going to increment I to 1. Now I is 1, is I less than or equal to 5? Yes. So you're going to print it. So it's going to turn out to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then as soon as I is 6, 6 is no longer less than or equal to 5, so you're going to get bumped out of the loop. And in this while loop example, is happy is false, y is 0, so you're saying as long as is happy is false, which is true, you're going to execute this code, y++. So y is now 1, if y is greater than or equal to 4, is happy is true. Well, y is not yet greater than or equal to 4, so you're going to go through again. Is happy equal to false? Yes, it is. So you're going to increment y to 2, and it's going to go on until y is 4, because when y is equal to 4, is happy is going to be true, and this conditional statement up here is not going to be met, so it's going to kick you out. And one common error you can get in coding is when you have an infinite loop, and this often occurs when you have a while loop. If there's no way for is happy to become false or to become true in this block of code, then this loop is going to go on forever, and you're going to get an error. For our activity, the question is, what is the final value of the variable big num? And it's going to be helpful to have some paper here and a pencil. If not, you can just follow along in your head. So this integer big num is equal to 19. So if you want to write that down, big num equals 19, and I is equal to 1 at first. Since I is equal to 0 at first. Since 0 is less than 3, we're going to go through with this for loop. Is big num mod 3 equal to 1? Well, yes, 19 mod 3 does indeed equal 1. So we're going to multiply 19 by 2. So big num now has a value of 38. So now you can cross off that 19 and rewrite 38 as the value of big num. And then you're going to increment big num again. So now big num is 39. And since we've reached the end of the for loop, we're going to increment I by 1. I is now 1. And remember, big num is still 39. Now we go again. Is 1 less than 3? Yes, it is. Is 39 mod 3 equal to 1? Well, no, it isn't. It's actually equal to 0. So now we go to big num plus plus. So big num now has a value of 40. And we increment I right here. So I is now equal to 2. 2 is still less than equal. less than 3, so we're going to go through with the for loop one more time. 40 mod 3 does equal 1, so we're going to go through with this statement again. 40 times equals 2, or big num times equals 2 is the same as big num equals big num times 2. So big num is now equal to 40 times 2, which is 80. So you can cross off 40 and rewrite 80, and then we're going to increment it even more. So now big num has a value of 81. We're going to increment I. I is now 3. Is 3 less than 3? Nope. So we're going to get kicked out of our for loop, and finally big num will have a value of 81. Thank you for watching this video on loops and conditional statements. I hope you have a great remainder of your day.